We're live.
Parfait, merci beaucoup. Good evening, everyone. Bonsoir tout le monde. Welcome to our November 2nd, 2020 virtual meeting. Bienvenue à notre rencontre du 2 novembre, réunion du conseil virtuel. Item 1, item 1, roll call. I'll ask all members of council to please announce yourselves.
Mike Ternowski, présent.
André Brisson, présent.
Jamie Lauren here.
Cindy Sose here.
Perfect, thank you very much. Prayer national anthem, we have none. Additions, deletions, or amendments, we have a few items to add tonight. Under item 19 for council member items, we have Conseiller Lorrain in regards to the signage for Jonathan Pitre Park. Under 19B, 19C will be Conseiller Lorrain in regards to announcement of Russell residents drafted into the NHL. Item D, myself, our 110% shop local program. And item E, myself, our CIP public meeting for the industrial and commercial parks. So I need a motion to approve the agenda as amended. I need a mover and a seconder. Moved by Conseiller Brisson, seconded by Councillor Ternowski. All those in favor?
Mike Ternowski, yes.
André, oui.
Jamie, yes.
Cindy Sose, yes.
Perfect. It is carried. Item 6, déclaration d'intérêt pécuniaire. Seeing none, hearing none. Item 7, l'adoption des procès-verbaux. Procès verbal de la séance ordinaire du Conseil du 19 octobre 2020. Procès-verbaux des séances extraordinaires du Conseil 21 et 22 octobre 2020. Motion d'approuver les procès-verbaux tels que présentés. Besoin d'un proposeur puis un appuyeur, s'il vous plaît. Moved by Councillor Ternowski, seconded by Conseiller Brisson. Questions? All those in favor?
Mike Ternowski, yes.
André, oui.
Jamie, yes.
Cindy Sose, yes.
Perfect. Carried. Item 8, présentation, il n'y a pas. Item 9, delegations, we have none. Item 10, consent items. All items listed under consent items will be enacted by one motion. Motion that all items listed under consent items be received as presented. Item A, minutes of the Russell Historical Society of September 14th, 2020. Need a mover and a seconder. Moved by Councillor Lorrain, seconded by Councillor Ternowski. All those in favor?
Mike Ternowski, yes.
André, oui.
Jamie, yes.
Cindy Sose, yes.
Parfait. Item is carried. Item 11, consultation publique, demande de modification au règlement de zonage, propriété connue sous le 1559 Saint-Jacques en Brun. This is a public consultation, zoning bylaw amendment, property known as 1559 Saint-Jacques Road in Embrun. I'll pass the floor to Madame Tremblay.
Donc, bonsoir, membres du conseil. Je voulais juste vous donner un petit peu le background de la raison pour laquelle on présente la réunion publique ce soir. Comme les membres du conseil le savent, normalement, les réunions publiques se font devant le comité de planning, mais le demandeur, dans ce cas-ci, devait fermer la transaction du terrain, voulait le fermer avant la fin de l'année. Cette année. Donc, étant donné que la demande de réunion publique et la demande de changement de zonage est simplement une condition à la demande de détachement de terrain, M. Leduc a approuvé à ce qu'on puisse procéder avec la réunion publique ce soir devant les membres du conseil. Donc, je vais partager mon écran. I will share my screen just to proceed with the public meeting for this file. So can everybody see the screen?
We can see. I'm not sure if, yes, the public can see it live as well now.
Perfect. So this is a zoning bylaw amendment for the property at 1559 Saint Jacques Road in Embrun, as described as part of Lot 5, Concession 8. So as mentioned earlier, this is a public meeting. This public meeting is a requirement of the Planning Act and is being held to provide opportunity for the public to voice their comment and concern with regards to the proposed application. Si une personne ou un organisme public ne présente pas de soumission orale lors de la réunion publique ou ne présente pas de soumission écrite à la corporation du canton de Russell avant l'adoption du règlement municipal, la personne ou l'organisme public n'a pas le droit d'apporter, n'a pas le droit d'apporter en appel la décision du conseil de la corporation du canton de Russell devant le tribunal d'appel de l'aménagement local et la personne ou l'organisme public ne peut pas être ajouté en tant que partie à l'audition d'un appel devant le tribunal d'appel de l'aménagement local, à moins qu'il n'existe, de l'avis de cette dernière, des motifs raisonnables de le faire. So the zoning amendment are a requirement as a condition of a recently approved lot enlargement, whereas the property known as 1559 Saint-Jacques Road was severed as a residence surplus to a farm operation, and the remaining lands enlarged as a vacant agricultural parcel of land. La propriété est désignée sous le secteur des politiques des ressources agricoles dans le plan officiel des comtés unis de Prescott-Russell. Les changements de zonage sont conformes à la déclaration de la politique provinciale et aux politiques du plan officiel. As you can see on the map shown, this is the property that is affected by the zoning amendment. So it's 1559 Saint-Jacques Road in Embrun. The zoning amendment as required. Sorry, I don't know what just happened. I'll share my screen again. So we're back to normal. So the property in question, la parcelle détachée, le parti B, donc la demande de changement de zonage est pour changer la partie B de A262 AR à A2 AR. Et la partie qui est identifiée comme un A sur la map présente est pour changer le zonage de A262-AR à A260-AR. So, la zone générale, rurale générale, exception 62, réserve d'agrégat, à zone rurale générale, exception 60, AR, qui aura pour effet d'interdire tout le zonage, tout usage résidentiel sur la parcelle de terrain rural qu'on a vu précédemment sur la map, qui était la partie A. Pour la partie B, la zone rurale générale, exception 62, réserve d'agrégat, à zone rurale générale, réserve d'agrégat, qui aura pour effet de supprimer l'exception, car la propriété en question rencontre et conforme les dispositions générales de la partie B du zonage de la zone A2-62. Donc, ceci complète la présentation publique pour cet item. Members of council will see the report and the bylaw for this evening for the same file.
Parfait. Merci beaucoup, Madame Tremblay. Question, membre du conseil là-dessus? This is a public meeting or public consultation, so at this point in time, if any member of the public has a question on this specific item, you can please type in your question and we can address it with Madame Tremblay. There is a slight few second lag between our home offices and what's being broadcast on the net, so we'll just wait a few seconds, see if anything comes in. Okay, I don't see anything coming in at this point in time. So with that, Madame Tremblay, was there anything else? We can move on?
No, everything is completed on my side.
Perfect. Thank you very much. We'll move on to the next item, which is reports. Item 12, rapport des départements et des comités du conseil, reports from departments and council committees. I'll just mention at this time that this is item 12 and there's a lot of files, but I invite anyone who wants to ask questions on the meeting of the day, so it has to be on the agenda today. You can type in your question at any point in time, and when we get to the question period at item 15, those will be listed and we'll be able to address those in a timely fashion. So with that, on va aller au premier item qui est demande le retrait de l'application du contrôle des parties de l'eau, se référer au règlement à l'article numéro 17, adresse civique 162, 164, 166, 168, 170 et 172 Place Saint-Malo en Brun. Question membres du conseil, questions for members of council? Part lock controls are pretty standard stuff. Item B, removal of part lock control, 200, 202, 204, 206, 208, and 210 St. Malo Place in Embrun. I'll just read off all the part lock controls, and if a member of council has a question at that time, then we'll just go through it. Item C was removal of part lock control, refer to bylaw number 7 for Central Park and Manhattan Court in Russell. And item D was refer to bylaw item 17 for Strasburg Street. Any questions, members of council, on items A, B, C, or D? Seeing none, quelque chose à ajouter, Madame Tremblay?
Non, merci.
Parfait. On va aller au prochain item. Next item is item E, Planning Advisory Committee and Committee of Adjustment Terms of Reference Report PD 71 2020. The council receives report PD 71 2020 dated November 2nd, 2020 and approves the amendment to the bylaw 2019-001 as proposed in order to approve the new terms of reference as amended and presented by the Planning Advisory Committee and the Committee of Adjustments. Questions from members of council, or if members of council on the Planning Committee have any comments to make? This was discussed at the Planning Committee and approved or suggested to council. If there's no questions, members of council, anything to add, Madame Tremblay?
No.
No? All right, then we'll move on to the next item. Item F, demande de modification au règlement de zonage, rapport PD 77-2020. Propriétaire François et Sylvie Leduc est connu sous le 1559 Saint-Jacques en Brun. Que le conseil reçoit le rapport PD 67-2020 daté du 2 novembre 2020 et adopte le règlement pour la modification au règlement de zonage soumise par Paul Desrosiers afin que 1. Que le zonage de la parcelle de terrain légalement décrite comme étant une partie du lot 5, concession 8, et située sur le chemin Saint-Jacques soit modifié de zone rurale générale exceptant 62 AR à zone rurale générale exceptant 60 AR, qui aurait pour effet d'interdire tout usage résidentiel sur la parcelle de terrain. Et 2. Que le zonage de la parcelle de terrain légalement décrite comme étant une partie du lot 5, concession 8 et située au 1559 chemin Saint-Jacques en Brun, soit modifié de zone rurale générale exception 62 AR à zone rurale générale AR, qui aurait pour effet d'enlever l'exception qui n'est plus requise. Cette modification est une condition de la demande de détachement numéro B020-2020. Questions, membres du conseil? Questions, members of council? This is just in regards to what we were just presented. Anything to add, Madame Tremblay? Hearing none, then we'll move on to the next item. Item G, 2021 Budget Report FS 39 2020. That council receives report FS 39 2020 dated November 2nd, 2020 and adopts the 2021 budget as proposed in the summary report, Schedule A, which includes a 2.5% tax increase, and that council approves proposed 2021 user fees and charges bylaw as modified by Schedule E, and that council approves the 2021 community grants special event program listing as presented in Schedule F, and the new organizational chart, Schedule G, and that council approves the proposed salary structure bylaw for the Township of Russell, and that council approves an exemption to the purchasing policy, whereas it agrees to purchase 2 tanker vehicles from Battle Shields Inc. The Russell Fire Department vehicle is in the 2021 budget, while the Emblem Fire Department vehicle is pre-approved for the 2022 budget. Questions, members of council? Councillor Saucier, and then Conseiller Lorrain, and then Conseiller Brisson.
Thank you. Yeah, I just had a quick question because I couldn't see it anywhere and I might have just overlooked it, but we had discussed the additional hazardous waste day and I didn't see it. Like I know we talked about ended up putting it under waste management and I didn't see it in the budget and I might have just overlooked it, but I just want to make sure it was included because we've already scheduled the date.
Thank you, Councillor Saucier. I believe, Monsieur Godin, we did include the funds for a second day, and that Monsieur Bourgon was going to, we've booked the day and was potentially looking for other options as well. Can you confirm, Monsieur?
Oui, merci, Monsieur le Maire. Bonsoir, chers membres du Conseil. So that's correct, Sir Councillor Saucier. We did, in fact, add that second hazardous waste day. It is in the budget. You will see they're hard to spot among all the other changes, but in Schedule C for all the operational changes, you will see an increase in those expenses, and they're being funded from those reserves. And
one other question, if I may, was just I also saw under the community grants, like for Marionville, the only thing I saw for them was the paving of the parking lot, and I think we had also said we were going to look at Christmas lights as well.
I believe we did put some funds for additional lights. Monsieur Bourgon was supposed to, I believe, to come back to council with more information as to where the lights would be located. But we did put additional funds in the budget for lights. That's correct, okay. Mr. Godin?
That's correct, yes.
Yeah.
Okay, merci.
C'est
tout.
Thank you. Merci. Conseiller Lorrain?
Merci, Monsieur le Maire. Thank you very much. I just wanted to point out a few things before we go ahead and vote on this after regarding the budget. I thought staff did an amazing job over the 2 days with what they had, making sure that we were all safe in the room. I thought there were some great discussions, but I wanted to point out a couple of different things for the public, and I know they're all in there, but I wanted to point them out specifically. One thing that's not listed here, but something I think that is very important that we made sure that we created community safety zones for across the township for all our subdivisions. We're going to be doing that in 2021, which is great for the safety of our community. So I think that was a great point during the budget process. I think the addition of the 1%, so about $130,000 for roads. So we're increasing that fund. Will be an extra $250,000 if we don't do it anymore, year over year, in extra roads money, or extra roads funding. So we know how much roads cost to redo. So that's great that we're building up that infrastructure. Additional 132,000, so 1%, approximately 130,000, somewhere around there. I stand corrected if it's a little bit more than that, but for the rec complex reserves to smooth out the impact down the road, and that's a key point that we need to make sure that we understand, that people understand, is that when the rec complex is built, that we didn't want to have a massive tax increase that year. So we're smoothing that out with that 1% last year, 1% this year, and as we go forward, we look to try and continue to smooth that out year over year. The accessible park in honor of Jonathan Pitre. That's again something I'll talk about at 18 a little bit more in terms of the signage. But that was a great item to add to this community, including hopefully the incremental tennis courts and basketball courts in that area as well. So it's a full recreational area that'll go over where the sports dome is. So some great work there. One last thing I wanted to touch on was the sole sourcing of the fire trucks. And if anyone knows me, knows that I'm not a fan of sole sourcing, never have been. but I wanted to point out a few key points that the fire chiefs have brought to our attention. And I think Mr. Mayor had brought it to during the discussions, which gives me more comfort in approving those purchases in this budget. So the fact that there was I think it was Leeds and Grenville, Mr. Mayor, I think that was the area that had done one this past spring.
North Grenville, actually.
North Grenville.
Grenville, North Glengarry.
Was it North? Sorry, North Glengarry. Yeah, that's what it was. So North Glengarry had done an RFP, and Battle Shield had come in about 20%. When I look at the numbers, about 20% less expensive. So it's about $100,000, which is fantastic. So we do have something to rely upon there from that perspective. Local company, love to support the local company, local jobs. Battle Shield has a 24/7 service. I think the closest one to us is like 3 hours away. We'd have to pay for servicing. So to have somebody within the municipality that can come out and service our fleet when needed for the fire department is absolutely a phenomenal thing for this community. So I think that's great. They'll come in and do minor repairs in our own fire hall. We don't have to pay anyone or send anyone to the companies themselves away to bring the trucks. They'll come and do them here. Additional warranties, extra 1 year on the manufacturer, the bumper to bumper, an extra year on the bumper to bumper. So all of that comes out with additional cost savings to us. And then there's some additional discounts that the supplier gives at some trade show discounts. So some more value there. I just wanted to, point out that we have huge engineering time as manufacturing drawings because we're doing them both at the same time in terms of them knowing that they're coming. And both trucks will look identical because they're going to be built at the same time. So fleet standardization, and then of course spreading those costs over two budgets. So I'm absolutely okay with the purchase and the sole sourcing of those two vehicles. And I know it's a large dollar amount. I think it's around $800,000 for the two of them. But in this circumstance, I'm confident and comfortable with the sole sourcing of those items. And I just wanted to point that out because there was a mention of that in the resolution. And again, just because of my track record of voting against sole source contracts, I wanted to say why I was going to go against that tonight in this budget, because I think the fire chiefs and the fire department and staff have done their due diligence, and I'm comfortable with that decision tonight. So thank you for giving me a few minutes, Mr. Mayor.
Thank you very much, Conseiller Lorrain. Conseiller Brisson?
It was just to mention that since it's COVID time, and that I saw in the newspaper that the United Counties were wishing to have only a 1% tax increase. I know I did raise that subject at the discussion, and that's why I was a bit not completely in favor of having 2.5. I know it's for a good cause, but I think for the others, so that's why I just wanted to share my concern about it. So that's my point.
Thank you, Conseiller Brisson. Just to point out that at the United County level, yes, it is 1%, but there are significant cuts that happen at the United County level. We stopped funding the Tourism Prescott Russell. We stopped the agreement with Via Rail for the trail. Therefore, those cuts in services is what allowed to hold off to a 1%. So, I mean, yes, could we do the same thing here? Of course, if we wanted to cut services and not invest in our future. I know that often, we have discussions at the table. We want more sidewalks. We want more roads to be done. Well, that's why we're putting more into the infrastructure fund. So we are able to have those asset management shortfall reduced so we can further catch up and try and improve our road system in the future. And as you mentioned yourself, Conseiller Brisson, 2010, we had $1 million infrastructure fund. you know, if we would have kept that over the 10 years and we wouldn't have never increased it, well, that $1 million doesn't have the same value. So if we're not continuously investing and, you know, putting more money towards our roads, we're actually falling behind. So, conseiller Tarnowski, then conseiller Lorrain.
So I want to congratulate the entire team as well. As Councillor Lorrain mentioned, I'm particularly really happy in the process that we went through and the fact that the 2%, there is a 2% there that really is all about you know, putting money aside for future spending as opposed to being caught, you know, reacting and spending money when we don't have it. And so the asset management funds that we're increasing for the roads and putting money aside, as Councillor Lorrain said, to soften the bump for the rec complex. This is all proper financial planning where we're really planning for the future rather than reacting in situations facing us. And this to me is the smartest way to do that, especially in a year where we're able to reduce our water costs and our wastewater cost, which has a really positive impact on that overall increase. So I think we're taking advantages of these savings and really planning for the future for our township, as opposed to constantly reacting or leaving it to the next council to be stuck with huge potential deficits around assets or infrastructure repairs and so on. So I applaud the whole staff for coming up with something and our whole process where we all put our heads together with the same goal in mind to have an amazing township and be fiscally responsible with ratepayers' dollars. Thank you very much.
Thank you, Councillor Tarnowski. And just to further your point in regards to the water and sewer rates, you know, the average household will see a taxation increase of about $45 in the township. But those on the water and sewer system are actually going to see a reduction in their flat fee rates of approximately $135. So when you factor both in water and sewer and taxation, residents are actually going to have a cheaper, you know, bill next year compared to this year. So it's a definite plus for our residents. And I think we have to remember as well is that you know, for the next few years until the next provincial or federal election, you know, the province is going to most likely, and the feds most likely giving a little bit of extra money to municipalities and helping out, but they're getting into significant debt. And at one point in the future, they're going to be turning off the taps for municipalities. So that's something that we have to keep in mind that, you know, we're going to have to become more self-sufficient and look at opportunities on improving and really discussing our levels of service, which is also part of next year's budget as well. So there's significant work coming, but I think on behalf of council, you know, we've heard comments, staff did an amazing job, and I think council is investing in the right locations. Conseiller Lorrain, sorry, go ahead.
No, that's okay. I had just forgotten to mention the water and sewer savings. So during my discussion, which again further supported the 2.5% increase versus a 0.5% increase that we got the budget down to. So that was pretty much it. So you mentioned it, Councillor Tarnowski mentioned it. So I'm good moving forward.
Perfect. Thank you very much. Madame Camille Laflamme will remove this item to vote on it separately outside of consent items. Any other questions, comments at this point in time? Monsieur Leduc, t'aimerais-tu dire quelque chose de la part de l'administration?
Bonsoir, Monsieur le maire, membre du conseil. Donc, j'espère que le public va apprécier les décisions du conseil et des recommandations de l'administration. Je pense qu'on a bien travaillé pour trouver un budget qui est positif. So these positive changes will certainly help the outcome of this community, and looking forward to see all the implementation of these new projects and new practices. Thank you. Merci.
Thank you very much. Councillor Lorrain?
Sorry, one last thing. Will we get a report before the end of the year as to any proposal for the additional 1% of roads, which roads are going to get done, or like that'll be recommended? Because I don't think we gave direction on that. So I just want to put that out there that something come back to council to know which road for that extra 1%.
Thank you, Conseiller Lorrain. Monsieur Leduc, I believe something will come back. Last year, we council just indicated add it to the next road in the list. But when that report comes back to council, we can have further discussions if we want to just take the same approach or pick another road. Is that correct, Monsieur Leduc?
Mr. Mayor, that's correct. Mr. Bourgon and Mr. Godin have already discussed which options could be looked at, but a report will be definitely coming from a council so that you will be deciding where that money is going to go.
OK, parfait. Merci beaucoup. Quelque chose à ajouter, Monsieur Godin?
Non, merci. Vous avez très bien résumé ça. Puis,
Parfait. Merci. Quelque chose d'autre, membres du conseil? If not, we'll move on to the next item. Councillor Saucier?
Yeah, I just wanted to thank Monsieur Godin and his staff also. And, you know, I sent a bunch of questions ahead of time and he was very helpful to make things clearer for me. So I appreciate all the work you did on this file. Thank you.
Thank you, Conseillère Saucier. Next item is item H, sommaire des dépenses allouées par soumission au-delà de 25 000, rapport FS 40-2020. Que le Conseil reçoit le rapport FS 40-2020 daté du 2 novembre 2020 à titre d'information. Question là-dessus? Questions on item H? Hearing none, anything to add, Monsieur Godin?
Non, merci.
Parfait. Item I, grant applications report Q3 2020, report FS 41 2020. The council receives report FS 41 2020 dated November 2nd, 2020 for information purposes. Questions, members of council? Anything to add from the administration?
Non, merci.
Hearing none, we'll move on to the next one. Item J, rapport financier 2020 Q3, janvier à septembre, rapport FS 42 2020. Que le Conseil reçoit le rapport FS 42-2020 daté du 2 novembre et accuse réception du troisième rapport financier de 2020 pour la période de janvier à septembre 2020. Questions, membres du Conseil? Questions, members of council? Hearing none. Anything to add from the administration?
No, thank you.
Parfait. Move on to the next item. Item K, tax adjustment request report FS 43 2020. The council receives report FS 43 2020 dated November 2nd, 2020 and approves, as outlined in Schedule A, applications for cancellation, reduction, or refund of taxes pursuant to Section 357 of the Municipal Act 2001, SO 2001, Chapter 25. Questions, members of council? Pretty standard stuff. Anything to add from the administration?
No, thanks.
Hearing none, we'll move on to the next item. Item L, item L, modification au règlement de la circulation et le... Oui, excuse. Modification au règlement sur la circulation et le stationnement, rapport PIC 13-2020, afin d'ajouter des panneaux d'arrêt interdits sur la rue Church. Que le Conseil reçoit le rapport PIC 13-2020, daté du 2 novembre 2020, et approuve, tel que recommandé dans ce rapport, la modification proposée au règlement sur la circulation et le stationnement 31-2004 afin d'ajouter des panneaux d'arrêt interdits sur la rue Church devant le 484 rue Church jusqu'à l'entrée du 488 rue Church à Russell. Questions, membres du Conseil? Questions, members of council? Anything to add from the administration? Hearing none, we'll move on to the next item. Item M. Route 200 realignment report ISPW 18A 2020. That council receives report ISPW 18A 2020 dated October 19, 2020 and approves the bylaw to amend the traffic and parking bylaw 31-2004 to reduce the speed limit to 60 kilometers an hour on Route 200 from 1,400 meters east of Edie Road to west of St. Guillaume Road and between Hamilton Road and North Russell Road. Questions, members of council? Conseiller Brisson.
Yeah, at the last discussion at the last council, I thought that we were talking only about the curve. So that's why I was more willing to propose maybe 100 meters before the curve on each side of the curve to have only the curve reduce and not all that segment of road because it's a country road, and so at and that is quite straight. Even if it's more than more than a kilometer long, I think for myself that it should be left at 80. So just having those signs for the curve, because we don't have any report of a lot of accident, even if those curves are quite steep. So I don't see why reducing all that length of road.
OK, merci beaucoup. Monsieur Bourgon.
Merci, Monsieur le maire. Donc, pour répondre à la question du conseiller Brisson, l'administration a fait l'analyse des courbes, puis les rayons de ces deux courbes-là qui se situent en plein centre du segment là, de 1400 mètres qui est recommandé au conseil de réduire la vitesse. Dans le fond, le design ou la vitesse à laquelle que les autos doivent opérer dans ce segment-là correspond à 60 km/h. Donc, c'est pour ça que l'administration fait cette recommandation-là au conseil. Les deux courbes en question se situent au milieu du segment qu'on propose de réduire la vitesse. Donc, d'un côté, lorsque vous allez vers l'ouest, vous partez de Saint-Guillaume. Donc, un véhicule a à peine le temps d'accélérer, puis, dans le fond, aurait atteint le 60 km/h. Donc, c'est pour ça qu'on juge là, que aussitôt que tu tournes de Saint-Guillaume en direction ouest, soit immédiatement dans la zone de 60. Tu passes les deux courbes, donc puis après ça, tu tombes dans la zone de 80. C'est pour ça qu'on le recommande de cette façon-là.
OK, parfait. D'autres questions? Other concerns? Conseiller Brisson?
Je demande que cet item soit retiré, s'il vous plaît.
OK, pas de trouble. We'll pull out item M. No further information. We'll go to item N. Winter Maintenance COVID-19 Contingency Plan Report ISPW 2020. The Council receives report ISPW 2020 dated November 2nd, 2020, and approves the contingency plan for the winter maintenance services and authorizes the Executive Director of Infrastructure Services to enter into a mutual aid service agreement with the neighboring municipalities. Questions, members of council? This is simply proper planning in case of something happens, then we have a plan in place, correct, Monsieur Bourgon?
Exactly. So we want to be ready for any type of situation that could happen to our public works team this winter. I had a meeting with the other director of public works and the county a couple months ago, and we agreed on that type of mutual aid. So basically, let's say if we're hit by having most of our crew sidelined because of the COVID, but the other municipalities are not affected, but that way we can at least utilize some of their employees to maintain a minimum level of service. And also that report is to advise council that our level of service could be affected throughout the winter. So there's different operations that could be delayed depending on the amount of employee that's available during the winter events.
OK, parfait. Merci, Monsieur Bourgon. D'autres questions, commentaires, membres du conseil? Any questions, comments, members of council? Hearing none, we'll move on to the next item. Item O, Route 400 curves. Courbe de route 400, rapport ISPW 21-2020, que le conseil reçoit le rapport ISPW 21-2020 daté du 2 novembre 2020. Questions, membres du conseil? Questions, members of council? Councillor Lorrain?
Yeah, so I just want to understand this a little bit more. So are the signs going to be readjusted so that it makes more sense? Is that my understanding?
Yeah, I believe the last line in the report, Monsieur Bourgon, that's what you're stating, that you'll be realigning the signs.
Yeah, exactly. So that's the action that will be taken from our staff. Will be to move there's a couple of signs to be moved, but besides that, there is no reduction of speed limit recommended to council, only to adjust those sign placements.
Right, so the reduction sign will be more towards the curb, the yellow sign, versus the white sign of the 80 kilometers being right in the curve. Is that fair? Is that my understanding?
So it's the 80 sign that's located before one of the curves going to be pushed east, so after the curves.
So you'll
it's gonna be pushed further east.
Yes, that's correct.
Okay. And are you gonna move the yellow sign from before Groves Road to just after Groves Road, so it's closer to the curve?
Well, for that one, we still need to. There's a minimum distance required, so we'll just make sure that it's the right distance. Because of Grove Road, it kind of affects our placement, but certainly if we can bring it closer, we'll definitely do so. But with always respecting the minimum distance.
Yeah, I think the one on the other side is right at the guardrail, coming westbound. So it doesn't necessarily have to be right at the guardrail, but at least past Groves Road, because right now it's between Wade Road and Groves Road. It's on that guardrail right there. So I think just going over the Groves Road location, I think that's probably anywhere from there to the guardrail going into the curb is probably a better location for that yellow sign.
Perfect. Thank you. D'autres questions, commentaires? Hearing none, we will go on to the next item. Item P, cost sharing pedestrian crossing, verbal report ISPW 2020. Whereas the Township of Russell wishes to improve the safety of the recreational trail users at all major road crossings, and whereas the installation of a pedestrian crossing at the roundabout was a major improvement, and whereas residents and council have expressed safety concerns at another crossing located on a county road, now therefore be it resolved that council requests the Public Works Committee of the United Counties of Prescott and Russell to recommend UCPR participation in the cost sharing for the installation of a pedestrian crossing at County Road number 3, Castall Street in Russell. This is based on the discussions we had at budgeted time where the trail crosses from one side in between the two villages going across Notre-Dame-Castall. So, Monsieur Conseiller Lorrain?
Yeah, I'd just like to know if we can pull this one out. I'd like to request a what's it called? A registered vote on this one, so we can send a strong message to the county on this item.
Okay, perfect. We'll do. Any other questions? No. Okay, we'll move on to the next item. Item Q. Subventions et contributions communautaires, rapport PR 17-2020. Que le Conseil reçoit le rapport PR 17-2020 daté du 2 novembre 2020 et adopte les recommandations du département pour les octrois municipaux de 2020 au groupe communautaire suivant. 1. Approuver un don ponctuel au comité de la Guignolée de Limoges au montant de 1 000 $ pour les paniers de Noël du 16 novembre au 20 décembre 2020. Selon les lignes directrices du programme de subventions et contributions communautaires, les demandes ci-dessous sont conformes aux critères. Questions, commentaires, membres du Conseil? Questions from members of council? Pretty standard stuff. Anything to add, Madame Guitard?
No, thank you, Mr. Mayor.
Perfect. We'll move on to the next item. Item R, discretionary funding from counties, report PR 18-2020. The council receives report PR 18-2020 dated November 2nd, 2020, and confirms that the $10,000 received from the United Counties of Prescott and Russell was used towards the operations and the purchase of equipment for the Barracuda swim team at the Russell Centennial Pool and its different swimming programs. A certified copy is required for the counties. So I need a questions, members of council, on that one. It's something that comes back pretty much every year. Perfect. Hearing none. Anything to add, Madame Pital?
No, we were lucky that we could still have our Barracudas going on this summer. So thank you for the help from counties.
Parfait. Merci beaucoup. Next item, item S. Ajout de l'entente avec Hydro-Embrun, rapport CAO 06-2020. Que le Conseil reçoit le rapport CAO 06-2020 daté du 2 novembre 2020 et autorise le maire et la greffière à signer le document tel que présenté dans ce rapport. Questions, membres du conseil? Questions, members of council? Councillor Saucier?
Yeah, can you just explain this to me a little bit more background? I just not exactly sure what we're doing here.
Yeah, not a problem, Monsieur Leduc.
See, Mr. Mayor, Councillor Saucier, and the rest of council. This is coming from a discussion between the president of the Alberta Hydro, Jean Martel, and I regarding ensuring protecting the privilege of the township to any revenues that could be generated from a sale of business to somebody else. For example, let's say Alberta Hydro would like to sell to Ottawa Hydro, or would like to sell to Ontario Hydro, or whatever hydro company. In that case, any of their assets, any surplus generated by that would be, with this agreement, coming to the township. And their goal is to maintain that revenue is protected to us, and they want to make sure on their end that this will be invested in the community of Alberta. So there could be some projects, as you know, as well as I, there's many projects that we're thinking of in the future. So in the event, if they decide to proceed that way, and last year, the board of directors had made a presentation to their members about such sale, and I don't think it went through with the agreement, but that was presented. So now, initially, the agreement was signed between the Alberta Police Village and the Alberta Hydro, and that Alberta Police Village was dissolved back in December of 2001. So now they needed a third party, which is the township, to be guaranteed that the revenue, and there was an agreement missing, and that's why we're just fixing that by having council agree to sign this agreement.
Okay, parfait. Merci beaucoup, Monsieur Leduc. Is that good, Councillor Saucier? Any other questions, members of council? Non, ok, parfait. On va aller à le prochain item. Item T. Recommandation du conseil d'administration de la bibliothèque, relocalisation de la succursale d'Embrun, que le conseil reçoit la recommandation 2010-12-001 datée du 15 octobre 2020 de la bibliothèque publique du canton de Russell concernant des options temporaires pour la relocalisation de la succursale d'Embrun. Je crois qu'on a le président du Library Board ici aujourd'hui, M. Jacques Héroux. Madame Maryse, y as-tu accès, M. Héroux, à nous parler?
Oui, il est là par téléphone. M. Héroux, tu peux parler.
Malheureusement, on n'entend pas M. Héroux. S'il est au téléphone, je pense qu'il faut qu'il frappe. I'm not sure if it's *6 or there's he has to push something in regards to unmute himself on the telephone.
And what about now, Mr. Mayor? Can you hear me now?
Oui, on peut t'entendre, Jacques.
Merci beaucoup. Donc, thank you to council for giving me the occasion on behalf of the municipality of Russell Public Library Board to present this motion as a future discussion for council. L'année dernière, à peu près à ce temps-ci de l'année, j'ai été ici pour présenter notre plan stratégique 2019-2023. Le conseil de bibliothèque a comme mandat d'être le porte-parole de la bibliothèque et il est reconnaissant d'avoir le privilège de vous présenter cette proposition ce soir. Nous considérons qu'une bibliothèque est un endroit privilégié de partage des connaissances et peut être le pilier intellectuel d'une communauté. Nous croyons aussi qu'une bibliothèque doit offrir un environnement d'apprentissage, d'échange et de connaissances pour tous et qui enrichit de façon culturelle, équitable, sécuritaire et bilingue. Last March 14th, the province ordered a complete shutdown of all schools, thus closing access to one of our library branches. We certainly do not want to be put in that situation again. The question that needs to be addressed is, what will it look like for a whole municipality if we were to no longer have access to the Embrun branch again? The Embrun branch houses 51% of the library's total assets. which includes 88% of the French material that would no longer be accessible if we lose access to the Antwerp branch with no warning and no access like we experienced last spring. How is it equitable? As a municipality doing some mega soul searching on the equitable front, that one language of material is more accessible than another. Moving these books and documents to a rent-free vacant building would also allow municipal council to save nearly $10,000 in annual rental costs that are presently being paid for the near non-existent service. Should parents be faced with their children being home again, how can we provide the best possible service when a good amount of our materials are stuck in a facility for which we have no access to, yet we still pay rent for? For a council who prides itself on its fiscal responsibility, I think this would show even more fiscal leadership. Le conseil municipal se doit d'offrir un service équitable pour ses commettants. Les électeurs du secteur Est du canton exigent et méritent un lieu sécuritaire pour qu'ils puissent accéder aux ressources dans leur langue officielle. Donc, attendu que, compte tenu de la situation pandémique actuelle, la succursale d'Embrun de la bibliothèque est actuellement inaccessible au public, même si la succursale de Russell l'est, et considérant que la succursale d'Embrun risque d'être à nouveau complètement fermée quand la succursale est hébergée à l'intérieur d'une école, ce qui empêcherait tout accès aux livres de la succursale, il a entendu que la fermeture complète de la succursale d'Embrun entraînerait à nouveau la suppression de l'accès à la majorité du matériel en français, créant ainsi une iniquité de service aux membres francophones de la communauté. Et, whereas the township has empty and available buildings that could be used, at least for the short term, we respectfully ask that council explore, at a minimum, temporary options within the township's portfolio and other properties owned by partners such as United County of Prescott Russell to house the contents of the Embrun branch. Of course, a more permanent solution will continue to be explored, as recommended by the Joint Subcommittee for the Relocation of the Embrun branch, which report was deposited in April 2018, but a quick resolution to the situation is required prior to a new shutdown occurring. Merci de votre écoute et au plaisir de travailler avec vous sur le projet d'une succursale indépendante à Embrun.
Merci, Jacques. Question aux membres du conseil? Commentaire? Councillor Ternowski? Councillor Associé? You're muted, Councillor Ternowski.
Yeah, sorry, I was looking for the button. J'aimerais dire un gros merci au président, M. Héroux, pour une très belle présentation. This is an issue that's been in our township for quite a few years now with that particular location. The fact that there is a pandemic is nobody's fault, obviously, but it does bring to attention the challenges that are faced with the current setup that we have. Just yet another situation where members of our community are at a disadvantage, if you want, in terms of access to material. So I think the request here is for even if nothing else than a temporary solution in an existing vacant building or something. It's something to look at. So I would like to support this in any way we can to try to find even a temporary solution now, and to certainly bring to the forefront that this problem is not going away and it's going to keep coming back until we resolve it once and for all. Merci beaucoup.
Merci, Councillor Ternowski. Councillor Associé?
Yes, thank you, Monsieur Héroux, for your presentation. This is a huge concern because I feel like we're not providing a service to the community. And I don't know, if it's true, but the rumor mill sort of says schools could shut down. I was hearing something today, talking about students going online again. And, if our materials get all trapped inside the school again, and we just don't have access to it. So I think this is smart planning. We're trying to find a solution to better serve the community. So I'm in full support of this as well. Thank you.
Thank you. Other questions, comments? Conseiller Brisson?
Non, c'est juste pour donner mon appui 100% aussi, parce qu'on a venu que c'est sûr qu'on n'a pas d'autres solutions comme c'est là pour une bibliothèque permanente, mais que pour temporaire, je crois que c'est important qu'on réinvestisse un peu d'argent pour pouvoir la rendre disponible au monde. Puis la pandémie a juste rempiré le problème que nous avions déjà. Ça fait que moi, je suis 100% là qu'on fasse de quoi et au plus vite aussi.
Okay, merci beaucoup. Conseiller Lorrain?
So just to be sure, are we receiving this, or are we actually directing, by approving this, directing staff to explore the options? I just want to make sure I understand what exactly we're doing by approving this.
As presented in the resolution, it's simply to receive it. There's no action being taken with the resolution as it is written now.
So by receiving the resolution from the library board,
yeah,
are we gonna then give direction for exploring? Like how does this progress? I mean, I'm just looking at what the options are, because if we just receive it, it just dies. It just sits there.
Yeah, it's like most of the other resolutions we received from committees, right? If council wants to take an action on a recommendation, then an amendment will need to be made at this resolution, and such an amendment has to be made. So
okay, so somebody has to make an amendment to this resolution at the time that we vote on it.
That's
so
correct.
I'll ask for it to be removed to allow for somebody on council to make an amendment to the resolution.
Okay, thank you very much. I have a few questions and comments. So from what I understand, this isn't in regards to the permanent location. This is just very much access to the books in case the school gets closed. That is correct, Monsieur Héroux? Right now, that's the biggest concern right now, is that we lose access to the material?
That is the concern. That is the proposal set forward with this proposal, yes.
Okay.
Resolution.
Okay, perfect. I just want to clarify as well. Tu fais des gros commentaires que, tu sais, que la majorité des livres francophones sont dans ce secteur-là, puis si on perd ça, tu sais, c'est diminué pour un secteur de notre population. Mais juste pour être clair, c'est le Library Board qui décide où les livres francophones puis anglophones sont situés. Alors, si la majorité des livres sont dans la bibliothèque d'Embrun, même si la population est rendue presque 50-50 dans les deux villages, je veux dire, c'est pas le conseil qui nous met dans cette position-là. You know, I'm fine with trying to find a temporary access. My recommendation would be, let's build a temporary access at the Russell Library and move all the collection over there. The staff are there. We would have, you know, staffing, and we would have access to all the books in the one location in case the school decides to shut down. That's one possibility. If we give direction to staff to look at options, I would say that's one potential option. Je veux dire, tu sais, comme, je comprends que c'est une pandémie puis on n'est pas en bonne situation avec l'école. Je pense pas c'est fair pour mettre ça sur le dos du conseil que tous les livres francophones, 88%, sont situés à la bibliothèque d'Embrun, parce que c'est vraiment le Library Board qui fait ce choix-là, puis facilement, la bibliothèque d'Embrun pourrait envoyer des livres francophones à la bibliothèque de Russell pour que ça soit plus un 50-50, que les deux secteurs de la population soient servis. Je pense que ça, cette possibilité-là est définitivement là. Councillor Sauce?
Yes, thank you. Sorry? Okay. Yeah, no, I just want to clarify something. We have lost access because the public is not allowed in the school at all. Right now, like I can't go into any school, even as a volunteer. So we've lost access. What we're concerned about is that we could the staff would lose access to the books if everything's shut down. And we're paying rent for something we can't even utilize. So I think, you know, from a financial point of view, it's not wise. And also the other thing, I'm not sure if, I think space is an issue to bring all the books over from the school. So they were just looking, you know, I don't want to speak for everyone, but that's my understanding is that we are seeking a temporary solution.
Well, that's why I mentioned a temporary structure at the Russell Library. There could be a temporary structure erected there.
Like outside, you mean?
Yeah, yeah. I mean, so at least the materials would be on site with staff, so they would have access if ever we lost complete access to the books in the. I think this is about. It's not necessarily losing public access. It's losing access 100%. That nobody has the option to get French literature because it's 88% located in the village of Embrun. Monsieur Hidou, je pense que tu voulais faire un commentaire.
Ben, c'était ça. C'était dans un monde idéal, avec 2 bibliothèques, une dans chaque village, ou une dans l'Est et une dans l'Ouest. On pourrait facilement répartir les livres 50-50. Mais avec la nature des choses, je pense que l'historique a fait que la majorité des livres francophones se sont retrouvés à Embrun, et la majorité des livres anglophones se sont retrouvés à Russell. Mais en attendant qu'on ait quelque chose de stable et de permanent, je pense que ce qu'on cherche, c'est une solution temporaire.
Parfait. Merci. Councillor Tarnowski.
Mr. Mayor, with all due respect, I just wanted to make a point. We've often, you and I, discussed service levels and adding to service levels and decreasing service levels and the cost of service. And so all I think that's being asked here is really to maintain a certain a basic service level that was always afforded to residents of Embrun. And so I don't think it's an unreasonable request, and considering that there is rent that is being paid, to find a temporary location, I think is a good idea, and hopefully that will also kind of keep pushing a final solution to have an actual dedicated library space for the town of Embrun. Thank you.
Thank you. Parfait. Conseiller Brisson.
Yeah, because I think we have to do something really fast to go something. And as you were saying, maybe we could keep Russell and having more French book, but having access to the staff so that the book are stored at the Sullivan building for now, because the ambulance building is not available right now to us, but the Sullivan building is. So I think for myself, I would suggest that we take the book right away out before, as Councillor Saucier was saying, that before they close the school, and that they have the list of the book that are stored at the Embrun kind of storage and having it in Russell. That would be a kind of temporary solution, but I think and not costly, just having shelf put there in the basement. Okay, thanks.
Thank you. Just for clarification, Monsieur Leduc, correct me if I'm wrong, but I believe we have some staff who have been moved to Annis O'Sullivan building. Since we've, in this pandemic, we've had to space out our staff. Monsieur Leduc?
We have not done so yet, Mr. Mayor. We're in the planning of it right now. There's more staff being hired and needing to find a space for them to work on. My concern with the DNS O'Sullivan building would be the floor capacity. That's always been the issue when you're moving a library. The floor capacity, I'm not too certain how it could support what's to push there. So again, there's some work to be done, but again, I'm asking, in this recommendation, no discussions took place about who's going to assume the cost? Do they have budgets to assume costs? Which, again, from a staff perspective, which location is council ready to consider to remove a service if we have empty buildings? So I think for me, there's a lot of direction needed from council before I'd feel comfortable in preparing a report.
Okay, thank you very much. I think the other point is we had discussions and some members of council that weren't comfortable that we were raising taxes 2.5%. But let's just remember that the last time the Emblem Library moved, it was a cost of $100,000. So how much is it going to cost just to temporarily move books? Because I think that the cost of moving is actually going to be more expensive than the rent that is being paid currently. And even then, there's discussions to happen with the school board in regards to rent. Conseiller Lorrain?
And I mean, I guess I assume that the minute that we pull those books out, that we're terminating our agreement then with the school board, because I don't see us going back in at that point in time. So there are a lot of discussions to have. What is the out clause of the contract? Do we still have to pay the rent anyway? I mean, there's a lot to this. So, you know, I don't know how quickly we can mobilize to do anything on this, but again, I asked for it to be removed if we have more discussions about it during the resolution time.
Yeah, Mr. Leduc.
I want to reassure council, rent is about paying janitorial services, about electricity costs. There's no rent per square footage per se. It's more that. So the term rent is probably not the proper one. It's more a cost assumption by the township on electricity and janitorial services.
So the costs are very minimal compared to if we were to rent a space, it would be those costs plus the cost of rent somewhere else. Conseiller Brisson?
Yeah, what I was going to suggest is just that if we can have just a resolution saying that our CEO, Mr. Leduc, and the CEO of the library, Madame, I have a blank there, Seguin, can meet and having a report brought to us with the different proposition that they have for that problem.
Okay, Monsieur Leduc, we'll write up the resolution when we get to that point. Would you need further direction on top of that?
Well, certainly, Mr. Mayor. I think council needs to tell me which areas they're looking for. I think, are you looking at shutting down the Centre Communautaire Camille Piché? Are you looking at other locations that we have available? Those, I think, I would need some direction here because obviously it's going to have an impact on something else. It's got to have on something else for sure.
Yeah, if we put in one of our la Centre Communautaire, la salle par-dessus l'Arena, we're taking away those potential rental locations for those areas. So there has to be clear direction for members of council, not just drop it in the CEO's lap and say find us a magic solution for this. I mean, we've been looking at options for the last few years, and you know, we're trying to, I understand wanting to move this forward, but we also have a full level service review coming next year to make sure that we're looking at where we're spending our money appropriately. And this is most likely one of the areas to look at as well. So I think that when we get to that resolution, we'll have more discussions, but there has to be a clearer direction for the administration on how to move forward. Okay, merci beaucoup, membres du conseil. Merci beaucoup, Monsieur Héroux.
Merci à vous, M. Maire.
Okay, so the next item is item 13, reports from investigator and the ombudsman. We have none. Notice of motions, we have none. Item 15, question period on the meeting of the day. I do see one question that's being posed. We have a question from Monsieur David Ryan. I'm looking to see if my budget request for Association Cycliste d'Embrun was supported or not. I can't see it in the report. Can you advise? Bonsoir, Monsieur Ryan. Monsieur Godin, I believe the request for the, I can't remember the exact terminology, Madame Guitard, I think it was called, it was to clean the snow, the trail, a hopper, something along those lines. I believe we put some funds in there. Y a-t-il quelqu'un qui peut confirmer ça, Madame Guitard?
The direction that I had from council at the time of budget was to inquire if everybody from the municipality was allowed on the trails. So I did talk to Mr. Ryan today. So the trail for the municipal section, of course, everybody is allowed on that because the township is the owner of the trails. And Mr. Ryan also stated that the other trails that are located on private land, everybody is also allowed. Of course, it's an association, and there is a membership fee to be part of the group itself. So it's like anything else. Like if you're part of a snowmobile association, well, yeah, we hope that people will buy some memberships because those membership helps to improve the trail system and etc. But they won't throw anybody out of their trails if they see someone that has no membership. So to the answer of council, yes, everybody basically can use the trails. It's just that it's like we're not announcing this out loud because we don't want to have like 500 people using the trails with you know, from everywhere.
Just to be clear, in the budget itself, we did put the funds to help the organization for the machine. Whether I know there was still details to work out, whether we buy it or they buy it, but funds are in the budget. Monsieur Godin, peux-tu confirmer?
Oui, excuse-moi. Oui, Monsieur le maire. Donc, il y a 6 000 $ qui est ajouté à la deuxième ébauche du budget pour cette demande-là. OK.
So, l'argent est là, mais il y a des détails à travailler avec l'organisation, puis le contrat, puis ça. Mais oui, les fonds sont là pour justement mettre ça en place. OK, parfait. Merci beaucoup, Monsieur Leduc.
Monsieur le maire, conseil, je pense que le conseil avait été clair, la délibération. La direction était qu'on achète la machine, puis qu'il soit prêté avec une entente avec l'association. C'était ça l'intention.
Oui, parfait. All right. Et voilà. Merci, Monsieur Ryan, pour votre question. I don't see any other public questions at this point in time. So I believe, just making a note here. Next item will be item 16, which is resolutions. That a motion that council approves all recommendations listed on the agenda under item 12, reports from departments and council committees. We'll put it on the table and then we'll have an amendment. I believe there's 4 items to remove. So I need a mover and a seconder to put on table. Moved by Councillor Tarnowski, second by Conseiller Lorrain. Madame Camré-Laflamme, I believe there was G, M, P, and T to remove.
That's correct, Mr. Mayor.
Okay, perfect. So can I get a mover and a seconder to remove those items? Councillor Tarnowski, Conseiller Lorrain, all in favor of the amendment to remove these 4 items?
Mike Tarnowski, yes.
André, oui.
Jamie, yes.
Cindy Sosa, yes.
Perfect. Items are, so we'll vote on everything except G, M, P, and T. I'll call for the vote. All those in favor?
Mike Tarnowski, oui.
André, oui.
Jamie, yes.
Cindy Sosa, yes.
Myself, yes. Item is, and they're carried. Thank you. We'll go to item G. Item G was the 2021 budget. I'll call, let's put it on the table. Need a mover and a seconder. Moved by Conseiller Lorrain, seconded by Councillor Tarnowski. I'll call for a registered vote on this one. Any further questions on the budget? Hearing no further questions, I'll call for the vote.
Mike Tarnowski, oui.
André, oui.
Jamie, yes.
Cindy Sosa, yes.
And myself, yes. The budget is unanimously passed. Thank you very much, everyone. Item M is the Route 200 realignment and reduce the speed limit to 60. We had that conversation. Need a mover and a seconder to put on the table. Moved by Councillor Saucier, seconded by Conseiller Brisson. Questions, comments? Conseiller Brisson?
Oui, qu'est-ce que je comprends pas encore dans cette recommandation-là, c'est qu'il n'y a pas eu gros d'accidents. Puis pourquoi qu'on ne peut pas juste mettre les pancartes jaunes à la curve, comme qu'on parle de la route 400, à la curve, de mettre les pancartes jaunes 60 au lieu de pénaliser tout le reste du chemin qui est droit.
Merci, conseiller Brisson. Monsieur Bourgon, I believe that you speak about the MTO standards.
Merci, Monsieur le maire. Donc, le mandat était de l'administration de regarder la configuration de ces deux courbes-là. C'est ce qu'on a fait. Étant trop dispendieux pour pouvoir réaligner les mettre plus droites, à cause du degré de la courbe, la limite de 80 km/h ne peut pas être maintenue et n'est pas fait pour maintenir une vitesse de 80 km/h. Donc, c'est pourquoi on recommande au conseil de réduire la vitesse permise à 60. Puis, il y a une des deux qui doit même avoir un indicatif inférieur. Mais la différence entre les deux, c'est que l'indicatif qui est recommandé, donc la fiche jaune, tu peux quand même maintenir la vitesse de 80 km/h ou 60 dans ce cas-ci. Mais on recommande quand même aux automobilistes de réduire leur vitesse. Donc, c'est à cause de la configuration de ces courbes-là qu'on recommande au conseil d'ajuster la vitesse permise dans ces deux courbes-là.
À 60.
À 60.
Okay. Merci. Conseiller Tonaski?
Moi, je serais d'accord avec conseiller Brisson. Ce qui me semble, c'est qu'on ralentit beaucoup plus qu'on a besoin, c'est-à-dire pour une distance beaucoup plus grande, plus élevée que ce qu'on a besoin. Et moi, je serais d'accord avec l'idée du conseiller Brisson, où ce qu'on fait juste pour encourager le monde de ralentir dans les curves comme telles. Moi, il n'y a pas d'informations, peut-être je l'ai manqué, mais qui me démontrent qu'il y a des accidents là souvent. Je sais que c'est pas sécuritaire, qu'on devrait réduire la vitesse, mais c'est juste que je suis concerné qu'on réduit la vitesse sur on too much of a stretch for those curves. So I would like to see maybe something just more specific in the curves rather than the entire road.
Okay. Thank you, Councillor Tonaski. Just a quick question, Monsieur Bourgon. If I understood properly, you're saying it's 1,400 meters on, essentially, is it on both sides of the curves? Are we talking 1,400 each side or 700 on each side for a total of 1,400 meters?
Donc, le segment affecté mesure 1,4 km. Les courbes se retrouvent en plein centre. Donc, environ à 750 mètres, là, approximativement, à 700 mètres dans le segment. Donc, c'est pour ça qu'au lieu d'avoir une date de tour, comme mon exemple que je mentionnais plus tôt aux membres du conseil, vous êtes sur Saint-Guillaume ou vous tournez en direction ouest sur la route 200. Vous avez à peu près 400 mètres à faire. Pour avoir, là, on mettrait le panneau réduction à 60. Il y a les deux courbes. Ensuite, vous accélérez, puis vous êtes dans la zone de 80. Donc, c'est exactement ce qu'on recommande au conseil. Il y a seulement cette zone de 400 mètres-là, entre les courbes Saint-Guillaume, qu'on recommande au conseil, ben, on va juste le rester à 60.
Oui, c'est pas une grosse distance énorme.
Mais...
Councillor Tonaski?
Peut-être j'avais mal compris. Moi, je pensais qu'on mettait tout le 1,4 km à 60.
Oui,
exactement.
C'est pas ce qui m'a été expliqué, parce que là, ce que vous venez d'expliquer, c'est que je baisse la vitesse à l'entrée de la première curve jusqu'à la sortie de la deuxième curve, ce qui était environ 700 mètres.
Si j'ai bien compris, M. Bourgon, corrige-moi if I'm wrong. Essentially, what happens is if you're turning onto Route 200 from Saint-Guillaume or from the other side, by the time you speed up and get to when you're going to 60, it would be time to, if you put the sign right there, you'd be dropping to 60 at that point in time. So you're going to go a few hundred meters. You might, if you really gun it, you'll get up to 80 and then you have to drop it at 60 right away to get through that curve. And then, for an extra couple of hundred meters, you're at 60 and then it goes back up to 80. So
what's the issue with that? Could I just get clarification?
So, well, like Monsieur Bourgon said, essentially you're talking 700 meters on each side. You're going from dead stop. By the time you start giving gas to the car, unless you're just flooring it off the bat, by the time you would, as you suggested, Monsieur Brisson suggested, you know, you're getting up to 60, and then that's when the 60 would start if we do like Conseil Brisson was suggesting. You're talking a couple of 100 meters extra that you can gun it to 80 for, you know, you're talking what, an extra 5 seconds of speed here. There's not, it's not like, I could understand if you're 1.2 kilometers or 1.4 kilometers before you get to the curves, but the curves are right in the middle. So you're talking about 700 meters on each side. Monsieur Bourgon, am I understanding this properly?
Exactly. So both curves are located right in the center of that segment of that 1.4 kilometer. So that's why we're recommending to council just to put that zone at 60.
Yeah, because I went on the weekend just to drive it to see at 60 and 80, and you're talking about maybe a 10, 15 second extra drive, if that. Like, I mean, I could barely time it. Conseil Brisson?
Yeah, because we have to. C'est ça. Il y a deux curves, là, parce que l'autre entre North Russell, puis c'est quoi là? La deuxième curve, là, celle-là, ça serait tout fermé au complet. Le chemin entre les deux. Ça serait tout baissé à 60. Là, qu'est-ce qui arrive entre Eddy puis Saint-Guillaume? Il y a plus long un peu parce qu'il y a il y a un chemin comme non utilisé. C'est pour ça qu'il y a plus long entre les deux, là. Mais c'est pour ça que moi je dis il n'y a pas eu d'accident quand c'est 80 comme c'est là. C'est pour ça que je ne vois pas l'utilité de baisser ça à 60. Puis que quand tu arrives justement à l'autre segment, c'est encore à tout le mettre à 60.
Conseiller Lorrain?
Yeah, I mean, I'm gonna support the resolution as drafted for two reasons. One, I'd be a hypocrite if I didn't, since I'm talking about the curves at 400. Similar situation, even though it says it can maintain the speed, I still wanted to have those signs there and fixed up. So for a safety perspective, I agree with the lowering of the speed limit. The second one is, you know, I hear Councilor Brisson, and I'll respect your comments, but I'll respectfully disagree with some of it when you say, well, there hasn't been any accidents there. So, you know, I don't think we should be reactionary to these situations or these areas. We should be more proactive in those areas and say, listen, we reduce the speed from a safety perspective before something happens. I don't want to sit there and say, we had the opportunity to slow it down. We didn't. And then there was an accident that happened there that potentially, and I'm not saying would, potentially could have avoided a situation there. So, you know, councils get criticized all the time for doing stuff or not doing stuff. I'll err on the side of safety and security on this one and reduce the speed in those two areas. And I don't know if you've driven the 200 between North Russell and Hamilton lately, but it is bad. I drove it yesterday, to be frank, and I was so happy that I believe that section of the road is actually being paved into 2021 because of the condition of the road. So I couldn't even imagine that road being at 80 right now in the condition that it's in, and let alone once we pave it for people to be using that and zipping through that curve. I don't agree with that. So I'm gonna agree with staff's report on this one for those reasons, because I think those two areas, you know, they could be situations waiting to happen. And I would rather err on the side of safety and security on this one.
Thank you, Conseil Lorrain. And I agree. I mean, that's why this council just approved a budget with funds to turn our subdivisions into community safety zones. It's not because there's tons of accidents or things happening. It's because we want to be more prudent and safe with our community. So, Councillor Tarnowski?
So I agree within the community where there's a lot of residential. I'm just concerned that we're, in that proactive kind of approach that Councillor Ryan's mentioning, this road has been like this for a long time. And if there hasn't been issues, the thought of maybe something might happen, we should reduce the speed, then using that same logic, we should reduce speed for everything around. Like all roads, like leading to the highway and so on. I mean, at some point we have to look at statistics, and it's not a question of being careless or not. And so I just don't want to be painted in that light that we're just not being proactive or careful. We're looking at facts rather than just fear. And I want to be sure that we don't fall into that trap. I'm all for safety and security, and that's why I'm very supportive of the community safety zone. But I'm concerned that we're going outside of that in areas where there hasn't been issues that we're kind of jumping on. And we're not saying not to put signage to slow down at all. That's not the issue either. It's just from reducing that entire stretch there to 60 kilometers an hour, I think is unneeded, and it's kind of overreacting in my opinion. So I'm going to vote against it.
Okay, so I'll give it to Councillor Saucier. We've all had comments. We all know where we stand. We'll call for the vote and see where it goes. And Councillor Saucier, comment?
Yeah, I'm totally in favor of supporting this and this recommendation. And actually, there was a terrible accident at that curve. Exactly, and 2 young people were killed. So I'm definitely for making it safer.
Okay, thank you, Conseil Lorraine. Let's finish it up.
Yeah, sorry, I just wanted to rebut one thing that Councillor Tarnowski did say, and is that we're not just doing it because we want to do it. We're doing it because we have a report from staff that says the curves are not safe to handle the speed at which the road is at today. So putting a recommended sign there to me is not enough. You need to change the speed limit of the road far enough in advance to allow for those curves to be at a proper speed, which is what the recommendation is. So we're not just doing it willy-nilly, we're doing it because we have a report that says the road is not safe and the curve is not safe. And in fact, they're going to put the yellow sign up with less than the 60 speed limit, if I understood correctly, because the curve is still not strong enough to take the speed limit that it is. So for us to be able to get to that speed or reduce from that speed, it's safer to be at 60. That's where I'll disagree with the comment that you made that we're just being reactionary to something. No, we've got a report. And again, Mr. Bourgon can correct me if I'm wrong, but we have a report that states the curve is unsafe at the speed limit of 80 kilometers an hour, and the speed limit should be reduced to 60. And in fact, we're going to put yellow signs that even say lower than that. So to me, you need to have the distance to not be slamming on your brakes in the curve. You need to be at a decent speed to come in. To me, that makes sense, and that's why I will support this. Thank you.
Okay, thank you. So we've heard all the comments. I'll call for. I'm calling for.
Recorded vote, please.
Okay, recorded vote. Call for the vote.
Mike Tarnowski against.
André Brisson contre.
Jamie, yes.
Cindy Saucier, yes.
Myself in favor. Carried. We'll move on to the next item. The next item was item P, the cost sharing pedestrian crossing verbal report. This is to send a resolution to the United Counties in regards to this trail crossing. Councillor Lorraine had asked for a registered vote so that we can show our full support. Any questions on this comment? I'll just call for the vote. Call for the vote.
Mr. Mayor?
Wait.
Who was the mover seconder, please?
Yeah, my apologies. I didn't call for one. Moved by Councillor Tarnowski, seconded by Conseiller Lorraine. I'll call for the vote.
Mike Tarnowski, oui, en faveur.
André, oui.
Jamie, yes.
Cindy Saucier, yes.
Myself, yes. Thank you very much, everyone. We'll now go to the next item, which was item T, the Public Library Board recommendation, relocation Embrun branch. The council receives recommendation 20.10.12.001 dated October 15, 2020 from the Township of Russell Public Library Board with respect to temporary options for the relocation of the Emblem branch. I need a mover, a seconder to put it on the table. Moved by Councillor Saucier, second by Councillor Ternosky. Questions, comments, amendments? Now's the time. So, Councillor Brisson, then Councillor Ternosky.
La première question, j'aimerais voir, ça dit reçoit la recommandation. OK, c'est celle-là, la résolution, OK, la recommandation. C'est juste que je savais pas, je voyais pas s'il y avait de quoi spécifique qui était demandé ou pas, là, avec la recommandation 2010-12.00, là.
Oui, c'est la résolution, just so everybody's clear what the recommendation of the library board is. It is resolved that the Township of Russell Public Library Board recommends to council that the township explore, at a minimum, temporary options within the township's portfolio and other properties owned by partners such as the United Counties of Preston Russell to house the contents of the Emblem branch. A more permanent solution would continue to be explored, but a quick resolution to the situation is required prior to a shutdown occurring. So it's essentially saying they want us to investigate for a temporary solution at this point in time. So right now, the resolution is simply to receive it. Councillor Ternosky.
So I'd like to propose an amendment to include a request to have staff look at current viable options. And I know that Monsieur Leduc is looking for more direction, so maybe we can talk it through to exactly what additional specifics should be included in the resolution. I'm open to that, but it would just be to have staff kind of start actioning, seeing what are the options. I'm not sure I can give enough direction at this stage because I don't know enough about what options are available.
Okay, so we have moved by Councillor Ternosky that amendment, seconded by Councillor Saucier. Questions on the amendment, Councillor Lorrain?
Yeah, the one word I don't know if I missed or not, but it was temporary in there, because I'm assuming we're talking a temporary location.
Mm-hmm.
That's correct.
Okay, I didn't know if I'd heard temporary, so okay, thank you.
Councillor Saucier?
Yeah, I just wanted to also add, you know, a lot of the community has even stopped doing the curbside at the school just because it's so limited when you can access it there. You know, when the buses are in, you can't go. When the students are outside, you can't go. So it's just really not a good situation right now. And especially, like I said, with COVID, if the school shuts down. And so I really hope that we can just find a temporary solution so we can access what's available to the public and provide a good service. Thank you.
Thank you. So in regards to moving the conversation forward, the recommendation from the library board is to specifically look at buildings owned by the township or partners. So we could limit it to that, Monsieur Leduc, if that was you looking for further direction to that? Because for me, that includes la salle communautaire, that includes la salle par-dessus l'aréna, it includes the Annis O'Sullivan building, the county still owns the ambulance building, but that's considered a partner. I'm not sure where else, if there was any discussion at the library board about other locations. Monsieur Councillor Ternosky?
Yeah, so just to clarify on that, really, we're looking at having discussions because we don't, like the library board on its own doesn't have enough information to provide any additional kind of to guide that request any more than that at this stage. And maybe that's where having that discussion with France would be a good idea.
Okay, Monsieur Leduc? You're muted, Monsieur Leduc.
When we're talking temporary, does it mean books are on shelves, are in boxes, are only accessible to be rent, or you expect people to walk in the building and see a collection or do something. For example, I'll give you an example. The county building is a garage right now, so you could not turn that into a library without major expenses and retrofitting, depending on what's the term temporary and what's the term accessible. Because the other issue also is it has to be a building that's accessible right now because it's a public building. So the 225 industrial, which is the O'Sullivan building, is not accessible. It's a split level house or building, so that would not be accessible to the public. So that again, it's another example of limitations where we could go. So to me, we have the Centre communautaire is 1, the library, the hall at the town hall at the arena is 2, and you have a rental that we have also available as a third option. But besides that, I don't see others that we own or are partners with. So again, I'm saying that to council in the sense that what's temporary, and if you accommodate somewhere temporary, is that going to be for a year and a half? If so, it means not least renting out the hall or the community center or the arena hall or others. So it's got an implication there, and that's why I don't know if the CEO of the library was approached by the board before having this resolution adopted, or was just prompted at the meeting and then just sent out a recommendation. Because to me, there's a lot of things that should have been talked about and money identified before coming as a recommendation to council.
Thank you, Monsieur Leduc. And Conseiller Brisson, and then I'll put a comment.
Ben, c'est pour ça que je demandais tout à l'heure, est-ce qu'avec cette résolution-là, vous ne pouvez pas, les deux du CEO, s'asseoir ensemble puis nous amener un rapport, dire, OK, ben, si on va à une telle place, c'est ça les coûts, telle implication, avoir les différentes options pour pouvoir sortir les livres au plus vite, que de là, avec ces rapports-là, c'est que le comité de la bibliothèque n'avait tout de même pas toute l'information que tu peux savoir. Est-ce que le plancher de la salle, oui, il est accessible, mais est-ce qu'il est assez fort pour les livres? Est-ce que c'est juste de storer les livres sur des shelves dans la cave de Sullivan? C'est quoi les implications? Mais nous amener un rapport après que vous ayez discuté les deux CEO, dire OK, voilà ça coûtera ça, puis avoir de quoi pour discuter, que comme c'est là, pas qu'il y ait une action de fait, mais qu'on ait un rapport pour que tout de suite, dans un mois ou deux, qu'on a un rapport, puis que là, qu'on peut faire une action concrète avec ça.
Merci. Councillor Saucier?
Just to answer your question, Monsieur Leduc, I'm thinking what they don't want the public like accessing it like a library. What they want is the public to be able to access a collection. So it would be, you know, people could still go and get the books, and there could be curbside and you know, they call in and say they want this, and they package up the books, and then they're able to take some collections out. It's to not lose access to the collection that's in the Embrum branch right now, and that was the discussion that was had. You know, I may not have understood 100%, but that's, you can correct me if I'm wrong, Monsieur Ternowski, but that was my understanding, was not to have a library where the public's going in right now. So if it's not accessible, it's not an issue.
Okay, Councillor Ternowski?
So I would agree with Councillor Saucier's view on that. I think in the end, there's going to be a scale of like depending on the opportunities that are available. And I think that that's where we need to find out what the options are, because ultimately it would be great to be able to offer more services, but at the very basic request is to have a place where residents will have access to the collection, which otherwise will not have access. And access could be like a drive up to pick up the book. That's the very basic. But obviously through that, this is a scale. So if there's an opportunity to have a facility where there is an option to go in and browse, even on a restricted social distancing and so on, that would be great as well. And all the way to the perfect scenario where we actually have a viable Emblem branch, which is what we've been discussing for a few years. And I know it's always on the back burner, but again, it's on a scale. And so right now we're kind of at a situation where we may not be able to offer the service or zero part of the service to the residents here in Embrun. And so we would like to at least have the bare bones and on a sliding scale to a full branch. So that gives you a bit of a scope, Monsieur Leduc. I'm sorry, that's a very large scope.
Well, I think based on the recommendation that was presented by the library board, they're limiting it to municipal buildings. So I think Monsieur Leduc, a report. Again, if we're just talking about storage, I don't see why not. We can have temporary storage at the Russell Library. The staff is there. There's operational savings. You can build an extension, temporary extension. Just if we're talking just about storage of books and people having access to pick up the books, that's already in place in the Russell Library. And again, I just want to be careful, because if the school shuts down completely because we go back into phase 1 or phase 2, chances are municipal buildings are going to go down and libraries are going to go down in a shutdown as well. Because, you know, everything was shut down at the very beginning, right? So there's a risk as well that, yes, we could temporarily move it and that space would be shut down as well. So there's a lot of things to consider, but I think at the end of the day, from what I read in this resolution, they want us to continue to look for a permanent solution, but they don't want to lose access to the materials in the short term. So it's very finding a temporary location, and from what members of council on the board are saying, it could be storage. At the very bare minimum, it's storage, essentially like it is right now in Emblem, where people don't have access. It's the space is there, the staff pick the books, put it aside, it gets picked up by the resident. That's what I understand from members of council on the board. So, Monsieur Leduc, does that give you enough to bring back a report, or would you like? I don't think we're looking to invest in studies at this point, as will the floor hold the books, is shelving, all that kind of stuff. It's really very much, the books are in boxes and they're there and somebody needs to dig it out if need be. So that's kind of the options you're looking at, Monsieur Leduc. Is that enough information for you to have conversation, bring back a report to council?
Well, my role is to find a location. The CEO's role of the library is to report on how she will operate. So that will be her responsibility to do that. So our discussion will only be about finding a location, and for the operation costs and everything else, it's going to be hers to bring to her board or a joint report to her board. But I know I'm quite limited, and you know, and again, you may not think that putting books in the box is sufficient, but the flooring capacity will be an issue unless you bring only 10 or 12 boxes. So depending on what they intend to do and how much of the volume of the books they're planning to move or relocate, that might be a good a key thing here as far as what's available. So again, my role will be limited to finding a location. There's about 2 of them. So, and then it's going to be hers to see how she can operate and can she meet the accessibility and the concerns about public access.
Okay, perfect. Councillor Soski?
Yeah, if I could just take the opportunity to put a little plug in here right now. I should have asked for this at the beginning, Mr. Mayor, but there is the Adopt a Book going on right now at the library, so people can go and purchase French and English books. They have a huge selection of French books, so you can purchase them to put them into our library's collection. So I just wanted to put that little plug in there.
Okay, thank you very much. So how let's Madame Camille-Laflamme, I'm not sure if we, Councillor Tarnowski, if you got the exact wording he put up at the beginning.
Mr. Mayor, since council mentioned it was also part of the recommendation, so I switched it a little bit. So you tell me if that's what you would like, Councillor Tarnowski. So it was to add a direction for, I added the CAO to look at viable options for temporary options, still for temporary, in the township's buildings to house the contents of the Emblem branch and to report back to council.
Yeah, I would just modify, if I may, just not house all the contents, just house a portion of the contents.
So, but that'll be, I think it'll be clear to add, to have that conversation with the library CEO. And that's part of that discussion as to what the library CEO is looking for from an operational standpoint.
D'accord.
Monsieur Leduc, t'avais-tu quelque chose à ajouter?
Yeah, I was gonna say that that direction needs more for her to do the work. I'm just gonna provide an answer to location. It's gonna be her work. It's not gonna be my work on the report. I'm not substituting myself for her role in with the library. So I will tell her which location could be an option, and for her to complete the report.
Complete the report and bring it back to. Obviously, at one point, it'll come back to council. I'll say, okay, this is what happens if the library wishes to go in item in location A. This is the impact in location B. Obviously, we've just approved the budget this evening, and we approved the library budget based on what they presented and what was required. So if there are costs to this, I would expect that it comes out of their operational budget because we've already approved our budget for 2021. So, okay, so we have a mover and a seconder, and then we have, for that amendment, we had mover and a seconder, Madame Camille-Laflamme?
Yes, I had Councillor Tarnowski and Councillor Saucier.
Okay, so let's vote on the amendment. All those in favor?
Mike Tarnowski, yes.
André, oui.
Jamie, yeah.
Cindy Sosa, yes.
Parfait, it is carried. Now we'll vote on it as amended. All those in favor?
Mike Tarnowski, yes.
André, oui.
Jamie, yes.
Cindy Sosa, yes.
Perfect. Thank you very much, everyone. Move on to next items. Item 13, reports from investigator and the ombudsman. We have none. Item 14, oops, sorry, I backtracked. We've already gone through these. We're at 17 bylaws. Motion that council approves bylaw 2020-121 and 2020-125 to 2020-133, inclusively for first, second, and third reading as listed on the agenda. Need a mover and a seconder, please. Moved by Councillor Saucier, seconded by Conseiller Lorrain. All those in favor?
I have a question, Mr. Mayor.
Go ahead, Councillor Tarnowski.
Should, if I didn't agree with the speed reduction from 80-60, that was on Route 200, right?
Yes.
Yeah. So if I didn't agree to it up top, I should technically not agree to it right now.
Or we can exclude.
Yeah, that's what I'm getting at. If we can just take that out and vote on it separately, please.
You want to separate 2020-121? Okay, so moved by Councillor Tarnowski, seconded by Conseiller Brisson to remove 2020-121. All those in favor to remove that item? Vote on it separately.
Mike Tarnowski, yes, thank you.
André, oui.
Jamie, yeah.
Cindy Sosa, yes.
Okay, the item is removed, so we'll vote on everything else. All those in, I'll call for the vote.
Mike Tarnowski, oui.
André, oui.
Jamie, yes.
Cindy Sosa, yes.
The items are carried. Now we'll put the 2020-121 back on the table. So I need Conseiller Lorrain, Councillor Saucier. I'll call for the vote.
Mike Tarnowski, no.
André, no.
Jamie, yes.
Cindy Sosa, yes.
Myself, yes. Item is carried. Move on to the next item. Item 18, rapport d'affaires nouveau, on n'a pas. Item 19, other business presented by council members. The first item myself for the committee operating consideration. I wanted to speak to members of council and put in a request in regards to the diversity committee that we have going on. Just so you're aware, one member of the committee has stepped down for personal reasons. So we will be reposting the position, and I'll make recommendations at that point in time after I've gone through the interview process. But I wanted to throw out there, there was concerns from members of the committee that currently we don't have a terms of reference. The first mandate of the committee is to work on a terms of reference so that council can approve it, or to bring it forward to council for approval, a draft to approval. But the concern is that right now they feel constrained within the committee bylaw of trying to work through that in a public setting. There's conversations to be had. There's difficult conversations to be had. They want to be comfortable having those considerations and having those conversations. And also they're looking for some flexibility because they're not always on the same time frame. So they're looking to see, is it possible that, they could have an hour here, an hour there to meet and discuss and try and advance this file. So what I'm asking is will council accept that this committee be able to hold meetings outside of the public realm until which time that they present a draft terms of reference. And once the draft terms of reference is approved by council, then by all means they'll fall into the committee bylaw and proceed with everything as any other committee does. So I'm bringing that there. I'm looking for feedback from members of council. Councillor Janoski.
I think as a new committee and as people get to know each other on the committee and to go through the process of having a good wholesome discussion, I think that's the only kind of natural evolution of it. So I would support that, and that makes sense to me.
Okay. Fed, any other thoughts, members of council?
Yeah, I do have one.
Councillor Lorraine. Sorry, the way you set up on my camera, I can't see your hand.
That's okay. I think I have to defer to the clerk on this item, because there's already been a committee formed and by bylaw and members have been put on it. If I don't know how many people were on it again. Is it 6 or 7 people? So what would quorum be for that committee, and can they, based on our procedure bylaw or our committee bylaw, legally meet outside of this realm, but outside of the public realm? And I just, if that's possible, then I don't have a problem. I understand exactly what you're saying, but I would hate to agree or give direction to something that's not legal.
Yeah. So let's, Madame Camille-Laflamme will be able to correct me if I'm wrong. So essentially, the procedural bylaw follows the Municipal Act when it comes to council members, because we talk about the business of the corporation, advancing the business of the corporation in a voting setting. Committees don't vote. They just make recommendations. And I'm talking about depending on the committee. Obviously, there's some committees that actually make, like at the planning, committee of adjustments, there's some decisions that are made there. But the committee bylaw is what council has put in place. It's not a requirement of the Municipal Act. Therefore, if we were to say that this committee doesn't fall under the requirements of the committee bylaw, that is permitted. Madame Camille-Laflamme, as-tu des commentaires?
That's what I would say as well, Mr. Mayor. So if we have a resolution that from council that it is carried that exempts this committee from following the committee and procedural bylaw until the terms of reference are approved by council, I think we would be okay, because it would confirm everything that council is in agreement that this is the exception, like the suspension of what is going on for the committee until the terms of reference are confirmed and approved by council.
Okay. So we do have that flexibility if we want. Again, if members of council say, no, we want this all done in public, it can be done in public. I'm not sure you're going to get the conversations and the free flow of information in regards to terms of reference. And I think ultimately that's the goal, is that we want to try and get something before council so that this committee has a clear mandate and how they can move forward with the public, with the education and all that stuff. Conseiller Brisson, then Councillor Saucier.
Oui, j'ai pas de problème, surtout si on va voter puis que c'est légal là, pour le supporter, jusqu'à quand les termes de, comment qu'ils appellent, les termes de référence soient faits. Ma question que j'avais pour toi, c'est que tu as dit qu'il y en a un membre qui a déjà sorti, mais pourquoi reposter la position au lieu de juste prendre le prochain qui avait sa liste, parce que tu avais quand même que tu as mentionné plusieurs sur le premier posting, de juste prendre le prochain. Puis,
this is a diversity committee. Therefore, I want to make sure that we have diversity represented on the committee. And with the applications that were received, I would not have diversity on the committee. So that's why we're looking internally right now how to post, because the whole point of this committee is that we wanted feedback from our residents, from our visible minorities background, and they should be members of this committee to try, because we want to make sure we have their perspective, right? So currently we have it's a committee of 5. I might make recommendations based on the applications received to l'augmenter à 7 if we have a good representation from different minority groups. So that's what we're looking for. Conseiller Saucier and then Conseiller Lorrain.
Well, no, I would support this, Mr. Mayor, and I think this committee is unique, and it's, like you said, the discussions are going to be sensitive at times, so I think I have no issue with this, and I would support your recommendation.
Okay, thank you. Conseiller Lorrain?
Because the committee is supposed to be 5 people, and you don't have that right now with the person who left, could we not essentially say that committee is actually not formed as of yet, and until that 5th person is brought in by bylaw, or even up to 7 by bylaw, that committee actually doesn't technically exist because there's not those people, and therefore they can meet? Or is it, can we just say, can we suspend the committee until such time as a term of reference are created, and then put everyone in? You know what I mean? I'm going to disagree with one part of it, or maybe I'm wrong, but the committees have to follow the rules of procedure, which are, I think, Robert's Rules of Procedure, which is what we go by. And they are trained, or at least they were trained in all of the procedural matters for quorum, for divulging of the divulgation de, I'm missing the conflict of interest. All of those things, they still have to follow all of that stuff. So I disagree that they don't have to follow that, because that's what we've put into place. So to me, I would feel more comfortable that we suspend that committee until such time as the terms of references are created, and it may be those people that are doing it, but that's where I would feel better.
So I think that maybe I should specify. I'll take away the broadness of my statement, and I'll say it's not that we're suspending from the committee or the procedural bylaw, simply allowing it to hold their meetings in private, that they're not in the public realm, because we still have quorum, even though one member has stepped down. There's still quorum. The staff would still be present at this meeting. The conversations will still happen. It's just taking that one component, exempting them from the component of having to be a public meeting. That's the only portion that really has to be taken out here. The rest of the procedural bylaw and the committee bylaw will be followed. but it's just that one component of the public meeting that we're looking for at this point in time. So conseil.
So could we not ask, I guess.
Sorry.
You mute yourself.
I think you muted yourself.
Sorry, for the terms of reference, do they need any type of external assistance, legal advice? And I'm looking from a closed session scenario there. Is there anything like that?
Monsieur Le Duc, I don't think we require anything like that.
At this point in time, they're not at that stage. The only thing that could be allowed would be training on some matter. But at this point, we're just talking in terms of reference, not talking training concerns here. So I don't think that it could be exempted from that perspective. No.
Okay. All right.
So
I guess we'll see the resolution. Do they need a resolution, Mr. Mayor? Do you need a resolution? Is that what you're asking for?
Yeah, if we can get a resolution this evening, Madame Camille Laflamme, you have something, or even the direction. The confirming bylaw confirms what what direction we give right now. So, Madame Camille Laflamme, tu préfères une résolution, je pense. So.
Yes, that would be preferable. So I have something.
Sure, let's hear.
Okay, so I have added the little part. So motion that council exempts the Community, Diversity, Equity, and Inclusion Committee from the component to have public meetings.
Until the terms of reference are presented to council.
Instead of following, from following the committees and procedural bylaws until such time as the terms of references are approved by council. Does that make sense?
Yeah, we're essentially just taking away the public component. We're exempt from the public meeting component of the procedural bylaw and the committee bylaw. Thoughts? Is everybody okay with that? Monsieur Le Duc?
Mr. Mayor, members of council, I think the committee members will have to be reminded no discussion from the exemption will be allowed to discuss anything else but terms of reference.
Right.
It has to be clear. If they're advancing some other topics, then they're not following resolution of council.
Right.
So they should have refrained from advancing the business until the terms of references are completed.
Correct. So this is just in regards for the terms of reference to be presented to council. Conseiller Brisson?
C'est juste savoir pour procédure, vu que là, ça se trouve une motion. D'habitude, quand il y a une motion d'amener tout de suite là, on n'a pas le droit d'en parler ou de le voter. Que s'il faut, c'est quoi le terme là? Stop of procedure ou.
Mover and a seconder?
Non, pas avec ça. That we have to. C'est pas la procédure habituelle, là.
That's a notice of motion.
Suspense of, yeah. Since it's a motion.
So we'll have to suspend the rules of procedure to allow this item to be on the table. And then if we do that, then we're allowed to vote on it right away.
Ouais, c'est juste pour procédure comme ça, oui.
Okay. So, Monsieur Le Duc?
Mr. Mayor, can you do that? Suspend the rules of procedure for notice of motion by members of council?
It's not a notice of motion. It comes from a discussion of council.
Okay, so just to be clear, I'm not too sure if Mr. Brisson was referencing a notice of motion or something else. That's why I wanted to be clear.
Yeah. So, Madame Camille Laflamme?
Mr. Mayor, so that would be just a motion to suspend the rules of procedure to add a motion at this time. That's what it would be in the agenda.
To add this resolution in the agenda?
That's it.
Okay. Conseiller Lorrain?
Yeah, sorry to confuse everything. Can this just come back at the next meeting? Is there a reason to do it right away?
Well, the reason is.
I'll tell you why. I have a concern that this section of the agenda could become something different than what it was meant for. And that would be adding resolutions outside of a notice of motion. And I don't want that to happen. So,
Yeah,
you know what I mean?
Yeah.
I don't want to circumvent the agenda process and our rules of procedure. I understand it's a suspension of the rules of procedure, but it's just and I know you're not trying to do anything untoward, but it could be a mechanism that somebody else could use in the future for bringing in resolutions they want voted on right away outside of the notice of motion. So maybe if it makes sense, can we move this to the next meeting unless it's time sensitive?
Yeah. I understand your concerns, and I agree 100%. This being said, I guess me and the clerk defer. I don't think this needs to be a resolution. She's asking for a resolution in this case. I think that's why we have confirming bylaws. Confirming bylaws confirm the decisions of council. Now, I don't think it needs to be a resolution. The reason that we can push this back 2 weeks, that's fine. It's just I know that the committee is very anxious to get working and have discussions, and I don't want them to be breaking any rules by having discussions, right? But if council wants to push it back 2 weeks, I'm fine with that as well. So if we want to bring it back as a resolution in 2 weeks' time, if members of council want to do that, or if council members are fine just accepting it this evening and pushing it through, it's up to you guys. Either way, I'm fine with it. As long as we give the flexibility the group needs to, try and bring us something in the near future. So, Monsieur Leduc.
Mr. Mayor, I hate to ask the question, but with your last statement, does it mean the group can work without the mayor and the staff liaison, and be excluded, or is it just in the context of a regular meeting? Because right now, I see different ways that this can go about, meaning they can just get together in other contexts than the committee work, and I'm not too sure that's what they're looking for, but right now I see that it's quite loose, and I just want to raise the issue.
Well, it depends what flexibility the council wants to give to this group. I mean, Councillor Lorrain mentioned that to suspend the group and let them work on their own. I don't think that's necessarily what council wants. We want to have a staff and a member of council impact or say in that. I'm looking at this that when those discussions happen, they really happen at the committee table, where staff are present and members of council are present. That being said, I'm sure that other committees as well do share information outside of the committee, right? They send themselves, the environmental committee, I'm sure members of the environmental committee share themselves information and have, discussions back at the table. So this is what the group is looking for. We just want to make sure that they're able to share that information and then discuss it in the group context when the group comes together. So, but no, Monsieur Leduc, I'm not looking that the staff liaison has to be there and the member of council has to be there. They have to follow, as Monsieur Lorrain pointed out, they have to follow the same rules of procedure and the committee bylaw. It's simply taking away the public portion of this committee. So I think most people would be fine if I seem to get the feeling we want to see a resolution come back in 2 weeks. So, Madame Cabernet-Laflamme, si tu veux organiser pour avoir a notice of, not a notice of motion, but a resolution ready at our next council meeting.
So are we considering this one as a notice motion today or not? In this case.
Monsieur Leduc?
I could bring that back under a departmental report. If I'm sitting on that, I can do that.
Okay.
Right. Perfect. Thank you very much. So that report will come back in 2 weeks and we'll go through that process. Okay, perfect. There was a few other items that were added. Councillor Lorrain, item B, for the sign for the Jonathan Pitt Park.
Yeah, so thank you very much, Mr. Mayor. So the location right now of the sign itself, I think, is a little too far east for where the location of the actual park is going to be. So I don't know if we need to move that existing sign, because I think Mr. Leduc wanted to use the same sign itself and just over top of it, which makes a lot of sense. But is that spot the right spot? And I think it's more just direction from council on it for Mr. Leduc and his staff as to, should they move it? Should they leave it? Should they use the same exact location? So I'm sure that the content of the sign will come back to council very soon. In terms of the naming, the actual true naming of the park, so that we can see what that design would look like, and what name it would be under the naming policy. So that probably has to come back to us, but it's just the location of that sign. And now with the ground getting a little bit more frozen, does it make sense to, if we're going to want to move it to the west side of Sportsplex, then is that something that we want them to move now so that they can just put the sign up when they get it? Or is it something that we're going to want them to do in the spring, which is a little bit longer time frame? So I just thought I'd bring it up. I know me and Mr. Leduc had a very slight conversation about it. And I told him I would bring it up during this session tonight.
Okay, thank you very much. Conseil Brisson?
Just my point of view is just that right now where the sign is, there is no trees, so it doesn't block the road. I know it will be a bit farther on, but I think just putting it there, it's the place that is more visible, because if we put it to the second entrance, the more west entrance, trees are almost up to the road, so there wouldn't be a lot of space to put there to be as visual. So that's why for myself, I don't see any problem to keep it where it is and putting it just over the existing sign that we have right now. Otherwise, it's just for the sight of the people whenever they want to get out of the second entrance, that it might make a problem. So that's my point of view.
Thank you very much. I'm fine with where it is. I see it as an operational matter. If staff decide that there is a good reason to move it. As Councillor Lorrain said, I'm looking forward to see what the sign design will come back with. But I'm fine with where it is now. I think that at where it's located now, the speed is a reduced speed of 25 clicks when you're coming out of the roundabout or going into the roundabout. So there's probably actually more time to notice it. But I'm fine with it where it is. I don't know if other members of council wanted to raise something, or Councillor Tarnowski? No? Councillor Saucier? Monsieur Leduc, as-tu quelque chose spécifique? C'est muté.
No.
Okay.
It takes a little time, there's a lag, sorry. Yeah, it's a little far away. I don't know, I haven't asked the state of the structure, if it's easily movable without damaging anything. If we could be moving it, there's two things I'd like to ask the Public Works to consider that, and also bylaw to see any regulation that stops it from being moved closer to an exit or something. But it's further out. It could be moved closer and still remaining on the east side of the road entrance instead of the west side. So, but again, I don't know how far the trees are, but we can look at it and see if we can do that. Now, hoping the weather stays nice, and they call for a warmer November than normal, so maybe that will allow us to look at that and move it if we can move it.
Okay, Councillor Saucier?
I'm okay with where it is. You know, it's going to be quite costly to move it, and of course I don't want to see trees coming down for a sign. So I just want to voice that.
Okay, I don't think we're looking at cutting down trees to put the sign anywhere. It's, you know what, like I said earlier, Monsieur Leduc with staff will look at it. If there's good reason to move it, great. You know, if we can make it more visible or a better location, perfect. If it's not, if it doesn't need to be moved, then, you know, but I appreciate you bringing it up, Conseiller Lorrain, because it is an important project and we want to make sure that we have the most visibility as possible. So yeah, if we can find a better spot for it with very minimal impact, then I think staff will look at that and they'll make that judgment call. That's good, Conseiller Lorrain? Perfect. Next item, Conseiller Lorrain, the NHL recruits.
Yeah, I just wanted to bring it up, and I know that our fire department did a great job in recognizing them as they were drafted, but we had 2 local Russell residents drafted to the NHL on October 7th. So not in the first round, but in the second and third, I believe it was in the second and third or third and fourth rounds. So I'd like to congratulate summer resident Donovan Sabrango. He got drafted 63rd overall by Detroit. And Dylan Peterson drafted 86 overall to St. Louis. And in fact, Dylan lives about 4 houses down from me at the corner of York Crossing and Settlement and Boxcar on the corner. So I seen him out there for many, many years just playing in the street. And I believe, if I'm not mistaken, that the summer resident, Donovan, actually lived at his house as well. So they were friends. Donovan plays for the Kitchener Rangers right now, and Dylan has accepted a scholarship to Boston University, which is why I was talking to Councillor Taranowski during the session there, during our budget sessions. He's excited to join that wonderful facility there and program. And both of them, if I'm not mistaken, have either tried out or gone out for their respective World Junior teams. Dylan being in the United States program, and Donovan being in the Canadian program. So I just wanted to throw a shout out to those 2. What a great recognition for their efforts. And if I'm not mistaken, Dylan Peterson also attended the CIH Academy in Rockland for a time period. So local counties product as well. So
perfect. Thank you very much, Conseiller Lorrain. Before I go to the next item, I'll just point out we had local artists as well. Véronique Ducaire, elle a gagné, a été reconnue cette semaine ou la semaine passée. Dans son domaine. Alors, c'était très, très positif de voir quelqu'un gagner sur le côté international qui vient du village d'Embrun. So, félicitations à Madame Ducaire. Next item, myself, our 110% local program. Madame Tremblay, feel free to jump in if you wish, but the township has put together a program, advertising program on our social media pages for local businesses who decided to participate. And we're pushing that people should be shopping local, especially Christmas time coming up. We know that it's our local businesses that help keep this economy going. It's not the big box online stores. So if ever our local businesses needed our support, it's during this pandemic. So, Madame Tremblay, quelque chose à ajouter?
Non, merci, Monsieur le maire. C'était pas mal complet comme information.
Parfait. Alors, j'invite tout le monde à aller sur le site, ses médias sociaux, clique sur les liens pour voir nos entreprises locales et comment on peut les supporter durant cette pandémie. Councillor Saucier?
Yes, I just want to congratulate staff on this initiative. I was thrilled when I saw the posters, and you know, I'm a big supporter of shopping locally, and I just think it really shows that we care and we're showing our support to our community, and I hope people will follow that example and do their Christmas shopping here this year. So thank you.
Perfect. Thank you very much. Next item for myself, open house. I believe it's tomorrow night, Madame Tremblay, for our CIP program for the industrial park and the commercial park here in Embrun. You know, we've had CIP now inside our village cores for a few years. It's slowing down, but it was a well-used program, and we're looking to get public feedback on potentially having that program for our businesses in the industrial park and commercial park. C'est un meeting virtuel, Madame Tremblay?
Yeah, so it's a virtual meeting. It's at 6 tomorrow, and it's going to be hosted by the consultant. And the link is under our website under the public notices.
OK, parfait. Alors, j'anticipe qu'on est des business qui vont aller voir comment que la municipalité peut les aider dans le futur. And I think this is a great program. You know, at the end of the day, we're helping local businesses, but we're also helping ourselves in creating new revenue streams or increasing revenue streams for the township. Madame Tremblay?
Yeah, and si ça peut aider un peu plus le taux de participation demain, c'est 50 000 $ qu'on donne à nos entreprises, first come, first serve. So if you want to participate and see what kind of program are available for your business, then I invite you to join tomorrow at 6.
Perfect. Thank you very much. Councillor Saucier?
Will this be available for people to view after on our website? I have a conflict tomorrow night, so I'd like to watch.
Yeah.
Yeah. Sorry, Mr. Mayor. Yeah, the information is posted on our website. It's been posted for the last 20 days, and it will be posted until it's presented to council. So if you access the website under the public notices, you'll see that the full document that will be presented to members of council. So it's under background report. And you have the draft CIP as well that explain the entire program. And we'll be posting the PowerPoint presentation as well on the same site after the presentation tomorrow.
Okay, merci.
Parfait. Merci beaucoup, Madame Tremblay. Next item, we're going into closed session. Motion to move into closed session at the hour of 8:20 p.m. to address matters pertaining to Section 239 of the Municipal Act 2001, SO 2001, Chapter 25, to consider matters relating to 1, sale of land in the industrial park, verbal report, Section 2C, a proposed or pending acquisition or disposition of land by the municipality or local board. Item 2, lease renewal in Emblem, report CS08A 2020, under Section 2C, a proposed or pending acquisition of land by the municipality or local board. And 3, closed minute sessions of the regular council meeting dated October 19th, 2020. Need a mover and seconder to go into closed session. Moved by Councillor Tanoski, seconded by Conseiller Brisson. All those in favor?
Mike Ternowski, yes.
André, oui.
Jamie, yes.
Cindy Sosa, yes.
Perfect. We're now going into closed session. We will come back afterwards for members of council going to closed session. We'll be meet there within the next 5 minutes. Perfect. Thanks, everyone. We're coming back from closed session. We're just waiting for all members and the clerk to be present, and then we're just waiting for a couple members of council to come back. Conseil Lorrain is back. Councillor Saucier is in. Okay, everybody's here. So, Madame Camré-Lafemme, item B, report out of closed session.
Yes, Mr. Mayor. So report at 9:12. So for the first item, council was briefed and we'll have a motion to be presented to council. For the second item, council was briefed on the subject and the direction given to staff on how to proceed and to report back to council. And for the third item, closed session minutes of the regular council meeting dated October 19, 2020 were presented and adopted.
Perfect, very much, thank you.
So for the motion to put down on the table for council, it's a motion that council approves bylaw 2020-134 for first, second, and third reading for being a bylaw for the sale of land of 2 acres to CNC Welding Ltd for $90,000.
Okay, need a mover and a seconder, please. Moved by Conseil Lorrain, seconded by Councillor Ternosky. Questions? Hearing none. All those in favor?
Mike Ternosky, yes.
Andre, oui.
Jamie, yes.
Cindy Saucier, yes.
Item is carried. Thank you. C'est tout, Madame Camré-Lafemme. Now it's confirming bylaw.
Oui, c'est ça. 135, oui, Monsieur le Maire.
Confirming bylaw, that bylaw 2020-135 being a bylaw to confirm the proceedings of the council, the corporation, and the township of Russell at its regular council meeting held on November 2nd, 2020 be read a first, second, and third time and passed. Need a mover and a seconder. Moved by Councillor Saucier, seconded by Conseiller Brisson. All those in favor?
Ternosky, yes.
Andre, oui.
Jamie, yes.
Cindy Saucier, yes.
Parfait, it is carried. Next regular public meeting of council will be held on Monday, November 16th, 2020, and we are adjourned at 9:14 p.m. Thank you very much, everyone.
Thank you. Have a good night.
Good night.
All right.